its CEO was incarcerated in Israel. I'm not sure which is more fascinating. Is it his journey? Is it his success?
I was sentenced to life in prison. I decided that while there's bars on the window, there is no bars on my mind. I started my first startup company from prison. I raised $500,000 and I sold it 9 months later for $6.5 million.
Really?
We diagnose disease through breath, but we are focusing at the moment on pancreatic cancer. Early detection saves lives, and this is where Scentech comes in. I did a horrible crime. I'm living it with every day. I think it's my not only responsibility, but it's my duty to do good by trying to save as much lives as possible.
Good afternoon and welcome to the podcast. It seems like every time we do another edition of Startup to Stock Exchange, I tell you that this is the first of its kind, whether it's the CEO or whether it's the way they went public, things like that. Guys, girls, today, this is the first of its kind. I'm not sure which is more fascinating. Is it his journey? Is it his success? And I'll explain why. I think it's safe to say that this is the only company that has been started while its CEO was incarcerated in Israel. And Harel Hershtik is the CEO of a fascinating company called Scentech Medical. Combination of AI and breath diagnostics, and he's going to tell us all about it. And so I'm going to try to find that right balance between learning who he is, the journey that he's gone on, the success that he's had. And with that introduction, Harel, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Seth, thank you very much. It's my pleasure and my honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you. So, I think that I was introduced to you through a pending business opportunity with publicly traded company called Reliance, RELI, and that they recently announced that they were acquiring a majority stake in your company called Scentech. If we can, let's start present day. Tell me a little bit about Scentech, what they do, and then I would like to get into the incarceration, the last 20 years, and where it all started.
Okay, so Scentech Medical is an innovative company that has a global approved patent that allows us to use what every cell in our body does. Every cell, and it's emitting a unique set of compounds called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. And we use that in order to identify either pathogens or carcinogenic cells within your body. So basically what we do, we diagnose disease. And it's not only through breath, but also we are able to do it on cultures through headspace analysis. But we are focusing at the moment on breath, and we have decided to use our exceptional capabilities and technology in order to target what is today undetectable and lethal cancer. It's a pancreatic cancer. It's a death sentence when it's diagnosed, according to almost any doctor in the world. They will tell you, if you're diagnosed with pancreatic cancers, take your affairs in orders and kiss your goodbye. I'm not going to use any foul words, but that's what the doctor would tell you nicely. Sadly, there is a increase in pancreatic cancer. I'm sorry. In the past 5 to 6 years, we've seen a large increase in pancreatic cancer. And what's more alarming, we see this in children as well. And we see more and more cases of children with pancreatic cancer, and it's also a death sentence. So in order to, the golden rule with cancer doesn't change if it's pancreatic, colon, or any type of cancer. early detections saves lives.
Sure.
And, and this is where Scentech comes in. Our capabilities are not, we don't use anything that requires the tumor to be seen. We identify its metabolic presence. So even if it's a small tumor through our technology, it will still have a concentration of VOCs in the blood. Later on, it will reside in the lungs. 75% of what's in our blood from these compounds is in our lungs. And what we do, we take, because you can't pre-concentrate blood. If you would want to do the test we do, you would need at least 1 gallon of blood, which is not something you can take in a test. So what we can do is we can take 2 gallons of air, pre-concentrated with special absorbent materials that only absorbs the VOCs, and then inject it to our system and find if those biomarkers present or not. And
Let me
that
ask you this, if I could just jump in for 1 second. So did you specifically decided to go this route of, let's say, breath diagnostics versus, blood or imaging or wearables? What are some of the benefits of being able to do it this way? Is it earlier detection? Is it better detection? And what are the doctors that are approached about this? Do they embrace it or do they doubt it?
Okay, so I want to tell you first. You asked me why I decided. This takes me a little bit back to 2008, just to say I lost both my grandmoms at 3 months separated. Both were not diagnosed on time with breast cancer. It metastasized to their brain, lungs, and heart, and they died very shortly after they were diagnosed. And that made me say I'm going to dedicate and focus a large part of my money that I made later on, as we'll talk about incarceration and what I did through the incarceration, and my time and my capabilities. And that's became the center of my life. Scentech became the center of my life. Why breath? Because of two things. A, we see a problem with every biomarkers in the blood. It doesn't matter if it's protein, it doesn't matter if it's liquid biopsy. You can't take blood. It's a lot of blood. It's invasive. What you're going to do with kids? What you're going to do if it's an elder? What if it's a person you can't find veins? How, and even if you do, how many times can you take blood? You can't take. It's tortured. At some point, these blood tests, and I can tell, speaks from experience. You, I was taking 3-4 times a day blood tests for me, and it was torture. Now, if we find a biomarker that resides within the blood, but also have an expression within the elevar, the lower parts of your lung, because that's where it would reside. Because in our breath, we don't replace all the air. In normal breath, we only replace the bronchial, the upper airways. We only expel that. But if you go all the way, you expel the lower part. That's the part that's interesting to us because that's the part that has highest concentration of those VOCs. So the reason is, first of all, not intrusive, not invasive, and second, it allows us to use equipment and technology at point of care, which now we don't, because now when you do a blood test, in a lot of the cases, most cases, we would send it to a central lab. Take for example, simplest thing. Today you go to the hospital, you have fever, you have a fever. I know in Celsius, I'm not good at Fahrenheit degrees, so I don't want to say in Celsius because people will say it's too cold. But let's say you have a high fever and you you go with high fever to the hospital. They say you have an infection. They're going to take your blood test to say what infection you have. It will take 3 days to get initial result and 7 days if you want to classify whatever you have through drug resistance. With our technology, you can do it after 2 hours of incubation because the bacteria always metabolite. It eats and eats and eats and eats and it grow, multiply in it. And it produces VOCs. And it's a small tube and the concentration will be much higher than the amount of bacteria that you can run through any of the existing systems, because they produce more because they exist and they multiply. So after 2 hours from our test today, we now identify bacteria after 2 hours of incubation. Meaning, while you just got your blood test and you're still sorting out which of the health insurance cover your that day at the hospital, and if you have coverage or you don't, but until you get that sorted out with the nurses outside, and you already had your blood taken, 2 hours you already know, the doctor will already know which bacteria, and if he will wait another 4 hours, he will know which drug resistance. And that's from blood tests that you can do with cultures. With the breath test, it's even much cooler. Why? Because the breath test allows you to do something that the blood test doesn't. It allows you to monitor your progression of the disease as well. And what it means that those VOCs, they're a direct representation of the metabolite. Let's say, God forbid, you know what, not you. Let's say, God forbid, I have a cancer. I don't want to say it on somebody else, it's bad luck, so I'll put it on myself. God forbid, I have a cancer tumor. Let's say, prostatic cancer, for example. And I've been treated for it. Now, if I take the test before I'm treated and I see the biomarkers of the prostatic cancer, our technology allows you to quantify it. Meaning, what is the output of that tumor? Let's say it's this size tumor. Right? Let's say it's this size tumor. And we test it. Now, when you're getting treatment and your tumor is supposed to shrink, then the signal, the output of the tumor, VOC levels needs to lower down. But let's say you have a treatment resistant tumor. It won't. It will stay here. Usually, in order to identify the changes in the tumor, you have to go through a whole protocol. Protocol means it's a full treatment session. And in the end, they will tell you, listen, it didn't work. Here, you can do a weekly breath and find out if it's working or not, or there's alarming signal, it doesn't work, or the tumor even spreads more. Another indication is, let's say you go and you remove the tumor, and they didn't find any metacytes in your body. Usually, it will take about, there's a drug that can be, for example, women with breast cancer. There's a drug, tamoxifen, that you can give women. I don't know the brand in the US. Here it's called tamoxifen. You can give to women with breast cancer, and it will not only kill small cells, it will kill small tumors and small metacytes tumors. But it has side effects, and so you don't get it always. But let's say you do the breath test, you take the tumor out, you let the women breathe after 1 week, and there's still, but a lot less strong signals of breath. You take the tamoxifen for one session, which is 2 weeks, and then you check again, and you would see that it's gone. So the technology is what exactly it means. It's a breakthrough innovation technology. It allows you to. Now, the reason it's breath, again, it's because it's not invasive, and it allows us to more accurately find what is the processes that we monitor. Like, we can monitor better whatever happens in your body using this. If you want a small funny story, anecdote about what was the first breath test in the world, you would be surprised. Okay, I'm just saying this is a historical fact. Don't judge me for telling you that. And if you have a younger audience, this is the part where you don't say, "Hey, gross," but it is true. So, the Roman soldiers in Europe during their conquest and this, every morning they would go through the camp and look for the soldier that have a sweet breath, acetone breath. It's an indication for diabetic, so that he's diabetic, for diabetes. The reason is people with diabetes has sweet urine, and the Roman soldiers used to brush their teeth with urine. That said, until the beginning of the 20th century, doctor would test urine like this to the cup, and that if you had it, they would know you have the sugar disease.
Interesting. Interesting.
So
I never heard that
the
before.
the
That
smell, yeah, yeah. I
interesting.
apologize, but the smell of that is exactly.
But that's
Uh,
that is an interesting fact, like the first breath diagnostics. Let me ask you this, just from a business standpoint, and then we'll circle back to the medical and some of the questions that I have, and I think the audience would find interesting, on the business side, on growth, on execution. Just to get into the journey for a minute. So most of the companies, as an entrepreneur, most of the companies that I'm aware of or that I've started usually have the same traditional origins. Some guy had a great idea in his basement, in his garage. Maybe in today's times, they're sitting at a Starbucks or at a coffee shop and they have this great idea. They launch their company on the back of a napkin, and it takes off from there. You launched this company from prison.
yeah, yeah,
Not just a day visiting there, but I believe from what I saw, roughly 20
all
years.
right, yeah.
Tell us, in your own words, whatever you're comfortable with. Why were you in prison? How long were you in prison? And then while in prison, how in the world did you come up with the ability to turn this concept into reality?
Okay, so as you're taking me like I have to go down memory lane, so
A
I'll
little
start
bit, a
from the
little bit.
no problem. I'll start from the beginning. It's this part is serious, so it's not smiling is not, but people think I'm smiling because I have asthma and I'm breathing from my mouth, but I am not smiling at this point. So in 1996, I committed the worst possible crime. The reasons are the real reason, as was later disclosed, that this was that a former boyfriend and business associate of my mom raped and assaulted my mom. I was in the U.S. at the time. I came back to Israel. I found out. We had a lot of arguments about that. He also claimed that I owed him money or I took some money from him, which was not accurate and not true. The money was my mom's. Doesn't matter. That issue doesn't matter. And I was 20 years old. I was very angry, 20 years old man, and I killed him. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no walking about it. There's no tiptoeing about it. Um, I killed the guy, and I regret it every day of my life. And I went to prison. I was sentenced to life in prison
In Israel.
in Israel. I was sentenced to life in prison in Israel. And on the second, well, at some point in prison, very early on, after about a year, 2 years that I was in prison already, I decided that prison, well, is just four walls, and everything that you can do on the outside and you want to do on the outside is also worth doing on the inside. And I decided that while there's bars on the window, there is no bars on my mind and there are no strings on me. And I would not allow anybody back then, I said it, allow anybody back then to dictate what I can and cannot do from prison. So I started my first startup company in 99 from prison. I raised $500,000 and I sold it 9 months later for $6.5 million.
Really? And what type of business was that?
Back then, it was, if you remember, back then, cellular modem had maximum of 19,000 baud, like 19K transfer rate. And I came up with a software. I actually went to the Supreme Court in Israel and got permission to have a computer in my cell. Okay, keep
Really?
that in mind for a second, because then comes another story associated with that computer. Um, I went to the Supreme Court and got permission to have a computer in my cell, and I got it. And I used that to build the software that allows you through motion tracking of and like face recognition and full motion tracking. There's only 36 points in your face that you need to track as muscles in order to mimic your face expressions. You use this every day now in any cartoon, cinema, like CGI made movies. What I did is I created a small avatar for on each of the cell phone. Keep in mind the resolution were really, really small. So very low resolution. So it didn't have to look like a lot. But I took the face of the person, one image, I glued it on this puppet, which is like an avatar with this, and I only transferred the points that change in order to it looks like you're talking or smiling or whatever. And I added to that and I synchronized the audio so that it is in delay. But you don't notice the delay because when you're speaking, you keep thinking the other side, oh, they have another second to answer me or this, because the transfer rate was so low. Yeah, cell phones were not like what they're today. But, and that company back then was sold to a European company that back then had a cellular division, and we were signed on an NDA.
I
But
mean, did they know? I guess both the on both sides of the equation, when you raised that $500,000 and the company that bought it for $6 million, I would imagine did both of those parties know that they were interacting with somebody
I have to
within
tell you the
the four
funniest
walls?
story about this. I have to tell you the funny. I recruited a CEO, which was a captain in the police, and he was in the earliest internet division in Israel and in the parliament. I recruited him as CEO of the company.
Hmm.
And he said to me, "You're nuts. Who's going to raise money for it?" And I had two investors that believed in me. One deceased recently. His name is Yitzhak Kal. And the other one, his name is Yaakov Kal. Yaakov Kal. And Yaakov Kal, from 99 until today, he was a VP and CEO of some of the biggest companies, high tech in Israel and in Russia as well as. But Yaakov Kal, until today, is with me. He's on the board of my companies, and Yaakov Kal, and he says, best investment I ever made in my life was Harel.
Wow.
250,000. I got back 2.5 million. And
It's a mind-blowing story, all parts of it. And I'm going to try to stay on the business element of things. I am curious though, were you the only prisoner that was given the right for this computer, and
okay, so
sort of
no, by
why?
the way, nobody's given a right. I had to go to the Supreme Court and take everything.
Uh-huh.
So you remember I said I had a computer.
Right.
Okay, so at some point, let me tell you another little bit story about me and why I'm. You say unique. You have really no idea how funny
Okay.
this is gonna be now. Um, at some point, uh, I well, heard about a nice game called World of Warcraft, and I decided I want to play World of Warcraft and finish my PhD as well. But the main reason was World of Warcraft. The PhD was just for fun. World of Warcraft is a serious thing, man. It's a serious game. It's a serious thing. I really wanted to play it. And there's no internet in the prison.
Okay.
None. So I built a modem from parts, a cellular modem from parts. This is public information. It sounds imaginary. This is public information. I was charged because of this. And I went to the dungeon for this. I was punished for 3 months into the dungeon for this. I built a modem from parts, and I was almost 4 years was able to hide that I'm connected to the internet, which made my business life a lot easier because then I was able to do a lot of stuff. But because because of the way the modem worked and the cellular towers worked in Israel, it was keep breaking off, and I keep losing the connection while playing World of Warcraft. So I literally built a better communication protocol and sold it to the cellular companies in Israel to fix the problem with another company. Again, getting money from this. And they were like really crazy. How did you build this? From what? I said, I have an idea. Did you
But how
test
did you?
it?
No, but I'm sure a bunch of people are wondering, just even practically, it is crazy, but at the same time, you mentioned you were 20 years old, 22. You grew up on a kibbutz. We're talking
Yeah.
about in the 80s, 90s technology. Like, how did you know how to do all this?
Okay, so first of all, I grew up in the kibbutz, and before my time in jail, I was back then a wannabe hacker. I built the
Okay.
blue box, the silver
Okay.
box.
At least that explains some of it. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I had the privilege of being in touch with legendary and will always be remembered what it could be considered the first hacker in the world. And uh, this guy, I'll let you guess who it is. He has a business card with lockpick set on it.
With what?
His business card is a lock picking set. He died recently, like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
His name was Kevin Mitnick, and everybody knows Kevin Mitnick. And I got to on one of when I was outside of prison, I was able to. I didn't reach out to him. I basically was looking around in a system, and he was talking on some, back then it were called BBSs, bulletin board systems. He was posting as under an alias, and a friend of mine told me this is the best guy in the world for hacking, and I was like, oh, it's just an arrogant SOB. And he says, no, he's not. He actually, whatever he wrote, he did. And then I got to some insights from him and inputs from him. He was a very nice guy to me back then. And we got to be a little bit more friendly. And that's it. And I had a
And
history of.
so in between the serious business of playing video games and the fun of buying and selling multi-million-dollar companies, did I read someplace that you also got two doctorates, one in math and one in chemistry? Is that
Yes.
also for fun?
Yeah. Well, no. It's not. Look, playing World of Warcraft is a serious thing, but businesses, I love developing businesses. I love doing it, and you have to understand the reason I did it is because they told me I can't do it. The prison system says you can't build a startup company for prison. I was holding board meeting in prison, but you only allow two people a visit. So I was bringing other people to the visit, and I was holding board meetings in the prison. And the guy was like, "You literally holding a board meeting here?" And I was like, "I'm surprised. Yes, I'm surprised you get." He says, "What do you mean?" And I want to tell you something. The point was this. I understand. Listen, I don't know if people in prison will watch this, but in prison, if you stop believing you can do something, that is the part where you start to die. And when you're a lifer, like a life sentence with no hope, in Israel, life in prison has no date. it's for life until the president, if he decides, give you an amnesty, and then you can apply to vacations and parole and all of that. And I decided, what do I have to lose? I have in prison, you have two paths normally. Either you become a criminal, you become a drug addict because you're broken and there's no hope for you. You can become a drug addict, you can become criminal, you can become completely institutionalized and from the prison system, and you can choose. And I decided none of these three things applies to me. I decided I don't want this. I want to make. I also got married and divorced 3 times in prison.
Back up. Back up. You got married and divorced 3 times while in prison.
If I tell you who was my first wife, that will blow your yarmulke 2 meter high.
Listen. I keep to myself. I don't know names, but I'm
It's
even
not a
more.
name, it's what she was.
Okay.
She was my police prosecutor for the first 120 days in the trial.
Okay. I have to go call Netflix right now to see if they want to do a movie about you. Really?
I am not joking. My first wife was the police prosecutor before the case moved to the real prosecution. And she felt I didn't need a lawyer. I was just saying, I'm here. It's you come. The judge says 3 more days to wait for investigation. 5 more days, like this. So I didn't need a lawyer. I'm just sitting there, and we're waiting for the judge all the time for hours. Sometimes we start talking in it. After the move, she came to the prison and said, "Listen, I fell in love with you." I said, "I don't believe you." She said, "How can I prove you that I fell in love with you?" I said, "There's no way. I think you have some mic on you. You tried to record me or something." And then she said, "You know what? I'm going to arrange for conjugal visitation with you, and then you will believe me." And I said, "Okay, right." Like I was like, "Sure, right. No, why not?" 2 years marriage.
Wow. Okay, but that's at least, I don't want to say believable, understandable, because you had contact with her on the outside. What about wife number 2?
Night Buffer 2, I published an ad in a very famous weekly weekly paper here in Israel. It's called For the Woman, Laisha, For the Woman. I published an ad on back then for dating. It wasn't before dating apps. So I published an ad saying, "A lifer in prison looking for the one to return freedom to his heart."
Unbelievable.
88 women. One of them
88,
became my
88
wife.
replies. So you're like
88
combing through
replies.
resumes.
88 replies. One became my wife for 6 years.
I don't even know. And see, this is not good for me, Harel, because on a podcast, I'm supposed to have what to say, and you're leaving me speechless with each part of your story. It's not going to come out well that the host has nothing to say.
Third
Okay.
wife.
And number
Third
3,
wife. I was using my modem online and I on a chat room and found my third wife and got married and 14 years of marriage,
14, all while in prison.
all while in prison. You
Again,
wanna you want you wanna
speechless.
hear the funny thing about wife now? My fourth wife.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay, there's a number
I got out of
4.
prison
Okay.
already divorced. I got out of prison already divorced, and this I step on my wife's foot in the entrance to a restaurant on the 8th of October. On the 8th of October, we got married. We got married on a like a video marriage because she's not Jewish. It wasn't Jewish at the time. We got married on the 7th of September. So, and we're now married 4 years.
Wow.
So when I married is for good. I hope this time she's a winner and I love her and it's for good this time. But that's it. But going
We'll,
back
we'll
on,
do we'll do a separate segment on dating advice another time for sure. That being said, though, let me one question that obviously pops to mind is that, so you said that you were a lifer
yes,
and that mentality. Obviously, you're here today. I'm sure for a while there was like house arrest and things like that while you're
um,
no.
no, only temporary.
How are you out? How are you out? What happened to the life? what happened to the life sentence?
Okay, so after certain amount of time, there was I appealed to the president of Israel. He gave me 30 years reduction sentence. It's a form of amnesty. And I, okay, so wait, we're forgetting one crucial part in the middle.
Wait, I
Okay,
have to, wait a second. I have to brace myself for this. Okay,
okay,
go ahead.
all right. So around 2008, sorry, 2000 and yeah, 10. Sorry, time kind of mixed up when you're in prison. 2010, I there was a fire in a prison I was in, started by two real pyromaniac prisoners, and I rescue a guard from the fire. During the rescue, I inhaled a lot of smoke, and my lungs were full of hot plastic particles.
Hmm.
Because of that, my lung collapsed. I was 28 days unconscious and intubated. Wait, this is the part where it starts to become really interesting. After
Hmm.
28 days, I couldn't breathe properly. I was put on something called a BPAP constantly with oxygen. It's a system that pushes the air in a sinus wave. It's very much like a ventilator, but it's not with a tube. And I was 8 years in a wheelchair, ventilated like this. Listen to it. Out of 11 years of total isolation in prison because of the steroids I got for breathing, my immune system completely crashed. So I was in total isolation out of 25 years in prison for 11 years. So
Wow.
one day,
Again, speechless. Wow.
one day when we went to parole, there were two sentences that came out of my parole board. One, the judge and the parole board asked the entire prison system psychologist. He says, "Can you tell us something about Harel?" He says two things. One, the most fantasized story you can think he's telling turns out to be the truth, no matter what. He says the guy was sitting in my office telling me he just finished a call with Yaakov Amidror, which was the head of the Israeli Security Council, General Yaakov Amidror, and Ehud Barak, which was the former prime minister. I told him I want to put you in a padded room because you're having a psychotic breakdown. He said to me, pick up the phone and dial this number. I pick up the phone. Yaakov Amidror answers to me, General Yaakov Amidror answers to me and says, who is this? He says, I'm Harel, psychologist. He said he finished an hour ago the conversation. He says, yeah, we did with Barak. Did he finish making the material he promised Barak already? And he said, and I hung up. Second thing, my lawyer asked, the judge says, we want to understand something on the medical side. You guys said he died several times because of the breathing problem, and he had sepsis and he had this. So how is it that he's here? My lawyer said, it's not a problem to kill him. He knows how to come back.
Nine
That's the
lives.
problem.
9 lives.
So
Wow.
So to say that, so what happened to me was I basically, while in prison, I hacked my way out two times. Once for 3 months and 3 years and 8 months. Second time for 4.5 months when I was in isolation. And the psychologist said the reason probably he didn't went batshit crazy and mental like we would expect was somebody. You have to understand. I would see a person just as he put the food in my room and leave 3 times a day. That's it. So the reason he didn't go batshit crazy, like the textbook says, is probably because he has an internet, and second, because he keeps building companies from prison and not getting himself out. So it's
So
my
let's
building.
transition. Let's transition then back into
Yes,
wow. Yeah. And we may have to do a part two sometime, but let's circle back to the
I'm
Scentech part.
available. Send whenever you want. Yes.
How did you? So while in prison, Scentech was started approximately when? How long ago?
2008.
2008. So it's been
In a
around for
previous
quite.
name, in a different name
Okay, in a
before.
previous name, in a previous name. And how were you able to do the research, execute on this? I mean, I assume you hired people on the outside
Yeah.
again, like you did on the CEO, all the doctors, um, and you didn't have a problem with people trusting you in terms of raising capital. And I put it this way: I know how hard it is to raise capital today for regular people in the U.S. on the NASDAQ, on the New York Stock Exchange, without any, prison. How did you get people to trust you to team up with you?
It's a very good question. Everybody asks this because if I tell you the total amount of money I raised from prison, you would be shocked. Okay?
I don't think
I will,
anything after this interview is going to shock me yet, but okay, go ahead.
in total, for all the startup companies from prison, I raised 140 million shekels.
Okay, that shocks me. That shocks me.
And for all the startup companies, including for Scentech and the previous company, and I've generated to my investors over 400 million shekels in
Amazing.
return. So when you ask the first question how I did it, even in the first startup, first thing I say in any conversation, and sometimes my wife wants to kill me for this, it says, "Hi, Harel Hershtik, and I spent 25 years in jail, and it's your right to decide if you want to continue the conversation or not." I'm telling them that, and I will not. It's normal and it's okay to not want to continue this conversation with me. And you can Google my name. This is the second thing I said. And any question you would have, I will answer to you. But we're here about a professional matter. And if you want to listen, this is the professional. And then I start to say what we
No,
are
that
here for.
I hear that. I hear that. Yeah.
And and I want to tell you a lot of people they come up and say, okay, how do you expect to manage a company while you're in prison? I say, I don't. I trust that my investors will be smart enough to also help me to recruit the right people to manage their money responsibly. I'm not taking a salary. I'm not taking anything. I'm only taking shares and based on success. And I also used to say this to my investors. Every quarter that we don't reach our goals, I will give from my shares to you guys, the investors, another block from my shares. Every quarter that we don't hit the milestones. And they were looking at me, what? Cannot, if it's delayed from force majeure, it's Israel. There can be endless reasons. I said, that it's my responsibility because you put your hard-earned money in trust, and it's difficult enough to run a company. And I said, and the investor would say, so basically, what you're saying, you're upping the ante, like in poker. You're
Right.
adding to us without us needing to add more cash. You're giving us more reward if it's something you'd fail. And I said, yeah, and also every time when I had large group of investors, I would tell them, you guys, you bring the CFO you want. It's gonna be your CFO. I'm here, and you can bring your CEO. I'm here just as a CTO, and even if you want somebody else, I'll give you the technology, and I will give you the ability. And people couldn't. And after a while, after I did my third company, which by the way did not succeed, but then I went to my pocket and I gave every one of the investors back their money plus 4.5% because that's what I had to give, and I and I gave it back to them. And out of six investors, four came back with me to the next company.
That is unheard of, right? I mean, listen, I think anybody listening to this, entrepreneurs or CEOs, private or public, they would have to guess that after doing multiple startups, not everyone is going to have a success story. So, I appreciate the candor that some did not do well, but the fact that you refunded their money is very rare.
The point, I was broke. I had no money at all. I gave
And yet
everything
that
I made.
And yet you decided to come up with a way to give them the money back.
Because the only way you can push forward is
Right.
by leaving a good trail behind you. If you're going to have a scorched earth behind you, it will come and bite you back in the lower
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
It's what
Okay.
I believe in.
So
Okay,
let's
so
talk. Let's, as you know, I want to be mindful of your time, and yeah,
I
let's talk
also
about
want to
this.
say the company now. What do you want to
Yeah,
talk about? Sorry.
yeah. Let's talk about the company now. Let's talk about the
So
company now.
So Scentech just finished rebuilding. Okay, so I can actually give you the footage if you want, because from my home I can see the lab, and our lab was hit by two missiles. Literally, I can give if you have a share capability or a way I can send you the file. I can send you the file right now.
Yeah,
Give
send
me
me
a
the
second.
file. Send me the file. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll send you. You want me to send to you on email?
Yeah, please.
Oh wait, 1 second. Okay, I'm
And for
sending it
those of
right
you
now.
who are listening on audio only, you hear, and those of you who are watching it on YouTube or some of the shorts, we'll have the edit team put in some of this footage. I always, you should know, Harel, I always give such extra credit, right, to all the Israeli companies that are clients of mine because they have the usual headaches and struggles that a regular U.S. CEO or a company
Yeah.
has. But for the Israelis, besides the mundane of traveling and back and forth and coming to the U.S. and raising money and doing roadshows and presentations, obviously the day-to-day life in Israel and wars and things like that, it's mind-numbing how some of the success stories have come about. That's the resiliency of Israel, and we
You
assume
know,
that more will come.
there's
But go ahead.
I sent you the file. I sent you the file. You can
Yeah.
just watch it. It's amazing footage. You won't be able to. There's not, well, except Israel. I don't think there's a CEO that can say, I literally filmed my lab getting bombed. Literally, you can see the first shockwave, you can see the second shockwave. The direct hit.
Okay, I'll check it out later. All right.
Okay, so in Israel, during the war, right at the end of the war, there was a comedian here from the US. The very funny guy, David something, I forgot his name. He's a very funny comedian. And he's saying, I'm sitting in the coffee shop in Israel, and there's sirens and alarms. And I look around, nobody moving. And I go, there's an alarm. How are you going to run to hide? He said, wait, first we need to know from where is the missile. Is it Houthim? Is it Hezbollah? Is it Iran? And then we'll decide if it's worth fighting. We have the defense system. The Iron Dome, the arrow, this. The guy said to him, and he says, haven't you heard? Everything they threw at us never reached us almost. So unless it's a really big missile attack, we're safe. And that's the story of the Israeli technology. Because if you can make your people sit in a coffee shop during a missile attack, knowing that Israeli technology is defending you, you're doing something right. The Israeli stock exchange during the war went all-time high. Not and that is the craziest thing ever. And the funny thing is, not funny, but I don't know, kind of weird thing is that Israeli companies in the world, they are becoming the center. Nvidia decided to open its biggest research platform in Israel. Intel has its biggest research center. NVIDIA, they don't even call it a center, they call it a platform. 10,000 people just doing AI research. Uh, Microsoft has one of its largest, if not largest, out of the US research centers in Israel. Oracle have here. Everybody has here. There's a reason why. It's not because we're smart. It's because our character is shaped under huge stress. This is also why I made startup companies. When you're under huge pressure and you grow on this, you have to be innovative to survive. And
But let me ask you, Harold, because you said that when you were younger, you were involved in the hacking and education in terms of like technology and the hardware and
Yeah.
the software. So I get all that. But the company that you're talking about now, in terms of the diagnostics and the pancreatic cancer and like, so you do not have a degree in oncology or in medicine, all
I have
self-taught.
in biology. I have in biology, and I have in the relevant part, which is our patent. It comes from math. It's a mathematical patent in its core.
And
But
are there and I want to circle back to one of the questions I asked at the beginning. Are you at the stage now where you guys are revenue producing? Are doctors and hospitals accepting this direction? Are you getting pushback? Where are you at
okay,
in the actual day to day
so
of the company?
we okay, so we were um, previously, we were at a much progressed stage, and some of our hardware, the manufacturer was not available to supply us anymore, so we had to go back to hardware mode and rebuild some parts of the machinery that involved, and we did it and we finished. Now, what we're doing, we're going through during COVID. We used to call it here COVID season, but during the COVID pandemic, we finished developing a system for identifying COVID with a breath test, which is innovative and it takes about 8 minutes. Back then, it was about 8 minutes to process the sample to give you an answer if you have COVID or not. We finished it. We finished filing it in Israel, and then the FDA told us we were about to file. Another company got approved for a breath test for on a similar methodology, but on a different hardware. Uh, they got approved, so we had an indicator. But then the FDA, were told by the FDA not to do because then we won't be able to use our clinical data if you want to go to another disease except COVID, and then they were going to stop the AUA, the emergency approval back then. So we decided not to. But I have to say, we are working very close with with the maybe the best I think in Israel, but a gastroenterologist institute in Israel. It's in a place called Shamir Hospital. We are working with them, and we're also working with. We have some colleagues of us that we work with in Europe, and there's two things. They can't figure out a way to identify pancreatic cancer. There's two cancers that we're targeting, pancreatic cancers and gastric cancer, which are the silent killers. You have it, you die. That's it. It's simple. There's the mortality rate is almost 100%. It's within the first 5 years, I think it's 90% people will die. And if it's early, and the key thing here that doesn't change in cancer, there is one rule in any diagnostic form: early detections saves life. And now what we did is we decided to pivot back from COVID to cancers. We had rough 2 years of war here, which you're talking about fundraising. I had investors from the US, sadly, that told me we're not investing because we don't believe Israel will stay existing at the end of the war. Now,
Okay,
that's what
their loss, of course, but okay.
there was, and I just want to point out we came out victorious. Nobody can deny that. So, but the point is, I had investors saying it's a time of war, it's a time of this, we don't feel like investing. And I also have to say that any diagnostic company will tell you in the world today that we all suffer a huge damage because of one person. I assume you're guessing who I'm talking to. She's in prison, by the way, now, and I'm not sure she's making startup from prison,
Right.
but I have to say I don't know if I can mention names or not because of legal liabilities.
Okay.
But no, from your side, I can
No,
say
no,
the name.
we'll keep it vague. We'll keep it vague.
It's really vague, but I've heard from so many investors saying to us, "But how do we know that you're not, you know?" And we say it's not just me. I know 5 or 6 other diagnostic companies in Israel that does. You know what? We have a company here that literally does what they pretended to do. They really do it. And nobody believes them. They say, come do the test. Bring us your own blood. Here's the bill machine. And people, they have so bad luck because they really do have it. And they're doing it amazingly. And they come across it. So when you look at the diagnostic market, we the world after COVID went to PCR. I want to remind everybody that PCR was not a good solution. It was the only solution we had at the time. PCR sensitivity and specificity are not as advertised during this. This was not designed for mass testing. It was not designed this. And we come up with a solution now that we're bringing a solution and we're talking to a lot of doctors here in Israel and in the US also and in Europe, and they're all saying to us, we don't care. If you can detect it and it's better than a coin cost, and it's better than this, we want it. We need it. And the insurance companies are on the same page because the insurance company today, you know what the cost of the insurance of treating a pancreatic cancer in the U.S. is? I can tell you. We figured it out. It's $2 million overall cost, and and they don't like it. And if you diagnose this early, it's like this. It's one
Right.
small surgeon, that's it. And it's even become more complicated with infection diseases that we are dedicating our other machine, which is called the VOC tracer, to cancer machine to infection disease. Today, you go to the hospital. They tell you have infection, but they don't know what infection, and you're spending 3 days in the hospital until they give you the first indication of what the infection is. Two problems with that. One, you might catch a worse infection while you're in the hospital. That's why they call hospital-acquired or associated infections. Second, your insurance says you're 3 days in the hospital, and at the end of those 3 days, the doctor will just tell you, okay, course of whatever, go home. But you spent 3 days. Our system can give you an answer after 2 hours and give the decision maker another tool to make the decision. It can tell him, okay, it's not a deadly disease. You don't have Ebola. You can go home. Okay? And the thing is that what we're trying to do is also provide a tool that doesn't exist today, and that's treatment efficacy. Our technology, literally, because it's identifying not only this pattern but the concentration, let us do treatment efficacy. If you're getting a drug that works, we expect that signal, let's call it the signal of the biomarker's intensity, to reduct because the treatment is work. But if it's flax or it's go up, then your treatment is not useful, and the response is a lot faster than you would expect. We know from our clinical studies that the response should be fast, but there's no way of measuring it. With this technology, you can. So,
Well, I want to thank you because that answers just one of my questions was like, what was that connection between Reliance Group, traded on NASDAQ, RELI, and you guys? There is that whole insurance overlap, and it will be very interesting to see how this progresses.
I have to say that Reliance
Ezra, yeah,
he is one of the few people I got to meet in the last few years that is a true visionary. He has no experience in this area,
right.
but he understood, him and Moshe, by the way, understood very well what this can do for detection and for everybody.
Well, Harel, I will say when I spoke to Ezra and Moshe and they suggested that we connect for a podcast, I had no idea what I was in store for. And I want to end with two things. Number one, kol hakavod to you, which means that I would say if anybody looks at the last 90 episodes that I've done, They're usually between 20 minutes and 30 minutes, maybe 35. This is the first one in 5+ years that I've done over an hour, which just means that you are the most fascinating CEO that I've ever had the opportunity to speak with. That's number one. Number two is, if people want to judge, they can judge. If people want to comment, they could comment. One thing that I think that the listeners will take away from, I know I'm taking away from, is seeing or hearing your story of the ability to overcome countless obstacles, and your sense of resilience, to push ahead is certainly something that stands out. So I want to thank you for the time. Hopefully we'll connect again, and I'll get updates. And I want to thank you for coming on. And if there's any parting words you want to give us.
I just say two sentences. One, me develop. I don't know if it's come across or not, but it's not an ego to it, but I have a unique mind. And I think it's my not only responsibility, but it's my duty to use my mind to repent by trying to leave the world a better place than I came into. I did a horrible crime. I'm living it with every day, and it was also my guidance to do good by trying to save as much lives as possible. And I also want to thank you very much. And it's my first podcast, and I would love to be again a guest here.
Okay. All right. Terrific,
Uh,
Harel. Thank you again. Nice to meet you.